everybody, how's it going? Hope you are having a great kind of start of your week. So I had a very eventful day yesterday, definitely today too. A lot of sleeping today actually. But okay, so I'm pretty excited to just go ahead and share one of Gelfand's masterpieces because I was just looking through his games a little because I think I was talking to someone about his third book over the weekend, and I kind of just wanted to go back and take a quick look at just some of his games. And I think this was my second most favorite. My most favorite one is actually the one where he played against Dominguez in 2013, the FIDE Grand Prix, I think it was. But this one is when he played against um, Grischuk, and I thought that was also another really good one. So let's just go ahead and try to cover that. Also, if you see a ginormous hand sanitizer behind me, that's literally right in front of my door. So I've been doing that as much as possible, just trying to leave it in front of the door. So I just remember to do it. And I think hello everybody. Hi Steve. Hi Yaroslav. Hi Luckless. Hi Donald. Roddy. Tracy. Whoa. Oh no, I wasn't lost or kidnapped. Well, theoretically, I was slightly lost because I didn't know where my streaming was going. That was a little final. Yeah, that was a little funny. I thought I was streaming on YouTube, but then I got scared this was going on Twitch, and apparently it was not going anywhere. So that was fun. But anyways, well, hi Chessweep. Yeah, yep, that was a very great game, and so most of you might already know this game. If you know this game and if you want to throw hints around, be my like TA, feel free to do that. I would love that. Whoa, a lot of different countries too. I've been to Portugal. My brother lives in England, so I guess that counts. Alright, let's go ahead and look at this game for a little bit. So, Gelfand is white. I think this is not, I mean, the opening doesn't really hold that much difference compared to, well, I mean, there's not like a novelty in it. From the third move, that would be very shocking. And from what I understand, Grischuk chose this line because it was the last round, and he wanted to go super sharp in the opening, and it kind of makes sense. When you want to play sharp, Grunfeld is usually one of the first things that comes to mind. So, alright. I mean, from what I understand, he had played the C65 idea earlier in the I want to say with Gelfand, but I'm also pretty sure he played it with other people. So yeah, it's a little hard to be super precise when it comes to who played what, since everybody played everything with everyone at this point. And that statement sounds very professional. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of more countries. Surprisingly, I was in Philippines 2011. Well, I'm in USA now. Barcelona, I kind of lived there for a year. Alright, let's just go ahead and dive back into Gelfand Grischuk. And so, everything super normal, nothing out of the ordinary. So far, everybody's just developing. So, I just want to take it like a quick minute and talk about this position, because, well, this is a good position, and I think it's very important to be able to actually identify, well, what are we trying to achieve. So what do you think? Well, I mean, hold on. If you know the theory, you know the theory. So we're not looking to learn the theory. We're just trying to understand the position. So let's try to give that a little chance. So right now, for those of you who play this opening, feel free to also give me moves and recommendations. But specifically for those of you who don't play this opening, what do you think white wants to do? What do you think black wants to do? Generally, how, like, white, where do you think the pieces belong for white and black? I think that's one of the most important things to be able to identify in any position, especially in this type of positions that the center is still up for grabs. So, so manage in some days it's I don't really choose where to stream. It's kind of pre-decided by the club. Unlike generally, chess and psychology is going to be streamed on YouTube, whereas the latest classes or the king and pawn warfare is streamed on Twitch. It can be brought from Twitch to YouTube, so nothing there's nothing stopping us. But we yeah I it's like we want to have both Twitch and YouTube as much as possible. Alright, so I see an idea with e3. Okay, makes sense because the pawn is under attack. Alright, you want to get the dark bishop out, so I'm assuming someone might be thinking f4. Okay, white should play queenside, should try to limit black's counterplay in the center. I like that. Good job, pipe and chuck. So I see a move debate between e3 or bishop e3. I'm assuming that's also due to this pawn being under attack, right? So you want to figure something out for your pawn. Well, d5 actually doesn't really work, I think, just because you're gonna lose this pawn anyways. So let's not really go for that. Queen takes d5. Oops, queen takes d5, and I mean, white still has a game. It's not like white is losing, but I don't think it's worth it. We shouldn't try to actively put ourselves in a worse position. So I do agree with move e3. I don't think bishop e3 is that great. I mean, it's definitely doable, but then knight c4 is one of the things to consider. Or just castle and later on trying to go something with knight c4. So let's just go ahead and go for e3. Yeah, I agree that white kind of wants to play solid. White's most likely gonna do stuff in the center slash queen side. So black should most likely be doing stuff in center slash king side. Yeah. Castle. Okay, let's castle. Now, now what do you think we should do? It seems like black is getting ready to play e5, right? So interesting. It's not a race. The position is super sharp already, so we can just chill out. I mean, kind of, but at the same time, you don't want to chill out too much because you don't want your opponents to get the chance to do whatever they want. So when you see your opponent wanting to play e5, you could start considering something with d5. That's one of the moves. What I think about the idea bishop b2, I think it's very interesting, but it doesn't help us right now because right now the move e5 is coming up, so that's something to consider. Yeah, so we should definitely keep in mind about, well, how to deal with e5. Yeah, so do we want black to get the chance to play e5, or are we just happy with well, basically, what are we trying to do? Let's see. I'm seeing some ideas. I kind of like them, but at the same time, I think it would be a little bit more interesting. So the main thing that I'm seeing is the idea with d5, but I think the problem with it is that Well, you can play d5, but then knight goes to a5, and now the c4 square is being kind of bombarded. And yes, you can try to play something like knight to d4 to take even more squares away and defend your pawn with your bishop. But this bishop is still kind of a little unhappy, but this is totally playable. Nothing wrong with d5. However, would we want this pawn to be on e5 and we play d5? Because like it feels like if the pawn is on e5 and we play d5, our d5 might be a little bit stronger because there won't be any more e6 to deal with it, and if the pawn is already on e5, then it's kind of blocking the bishop. So that's something else to consider. Do we want to wait for e5 before we play d5? And so yeah, that's another possibility. There were some suggestions for b3. I don't think b3, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's something like humongously wrong with it, but at the same time e5, and now if you were to play d5, now there's this e4, and yeah, that's not gonna be pretty. So we shouldn't play b3 if we want to go for e5 d5. Yep, it does get a little bit messy, I agree. So in the game, Gelfand just went ahead and played rook e1. I kind of just like the idea of rook e1 because you are not making like a super decisive move like b3. You're not really committing to anything super specific. A3 doesn't really make much sense because, well, it's not like a wrong move, but it's also not really going with the flow of the position because knight b4 is not really a threat. If knight b4 was a threat, then yeah, a3 would make perfect sense. So with rook e1, now we're kind of waiting to see what black does, because now if black plays e5, we go d5, and now we can do this e4, right? And now this bishop can try to come up here too. Now this bishop looks a little funny, so that would be ideal. We can throw in a b3 to completely make sure this knight stays out there. And I really do like this position. I think it would be pretty awesome if this happened. White just has much more activity. So after rook e1, Grischuk is smart. This is a very important game. He's not going to risk e5, d5 and getting into a unpleasant position. So in the game, he went a5. Now, what do you think is the idea with a5? Is it just simply a move to gain more space in the queen side? Or does it actually have like a hidden idea? And it got really cold here. It's kind of funny whenever I start talking and I look at Pishu's direction, because as you probably remember, His Majesty is sleeping right up here. Very cute position. He's kind of just opens his eyes and gives me like a tiny huh, and then goes back to sleep. I wish I was a cat. He's always either sleeping or... Last night he started chasing his own tail. That was just hilarious. I was on a call with my mom and I was FaceTiming her and I showed her Pishi chasing his own tail. It was just... I should have videoed that instead of just calling my mom. Some ideas with taking more space and activating the rook. Oh, that's actually interesting. I think in long term that sounds very interesting, yeah. But at the moment, do you think there is a serious threat, or like a5 is just trying to give white the chance to mess it up? Okay, I like this idea. You guys are just mainly considering that black is just grabbing space, okay. So what do you think white should do? I agree, if we were to play b3, a5 would be pretty useful. Yeah, so I think a5 overall is pretty sneaky and I really like it. So yeah, I think the idea of a5 is very valid, very scary. not scary, very, very sneaky. Just kind of waiting for opponent to kind of wait and mess it up. I love that. It's great. So, we don't really, as white, we don't really want to do much in the queen side at the moment. We want to kind of take a minute and see how it unravels. So not exactly queen b3, but I think queen c2 is worth mentioning because, well, to be fair, queen c2 was played in a different game. Whose game was this? Oh, Rambaldini Lichau in Khanty-Mansiysk 2010. So I believe this was played there, queen c2, and if I'm not mistaken, the game ended in a draw. Yeah, and it was interesting, bishop, and then you just get the center, you go for the center, and it was a very interesting game. But Gelfand chose not to go into this line. He really wanted to still keep the surprise and just play a little bit more easy. Ooh, queen e2, I like that idea. Still keeping the queen around. You might want to simply try and get your bishop out. I kind of like that. Keep in mind, if you were to play d5, this is still a mistake because you would still lose your pawn. I think queen c2 is a good idea, but I think Gelfand didn't play it because like 1 year before this game that queen c2 was played, so it was still pretty fresh and he didn't really want to do that. Steve Nord, that is a good question. The problem is that white doesn't have any balance going on for that sort of attack on the king side. So that's why we can't just start like a super checkmate. But I think we are trying to. I think with queen e2 we're definitely trying to. After queen e2, black just played bishop g4. So I think if black played something like bishop f5, then what do you think white would do? Because now it's like, I mean, this is still a very interesting position. Black did the sneaky a5, white did sneaky queen e2. Nobody is really threatening anything immediately, but both sides are kind of just waiting for the opponent to mess it up. So that's why we should try to figure out how can your opponent mess it up. Well, first of all, this is the only piece that's not exactly developed, and it can be developed. So it can go 3 different squares. So it's important to try and make a decision for black. Where should black go with this bishop? So what do you guys think? And to be completely fair, these are all theories. So if some of you know this, feel free to throw hints in the chat and help everybody else out too. But for those of you who don't play this, or this is a little out of your areas of expertise, I used to play Grunfeld with black, but just very briefly, temporarily. I didn't really play it for years. So this is not exactly an everyday type of deal position for me. So yeah, I think the idea of bishop f5 is pretty valid. Bishop g4, bishop e6. I think all 3 of them are worth considering, but so which one do you think black should go for? I see a lot of bishop g4s. Interesting. Oh, I see one bishop f5. Oh, interesting. Let's try and dive a little deeper while I try to unfreeze myself. It really started to get cold out here. Okay, so alright, let's take it. First of all, let's start with bishop f5. So bishop f5 is not the best idea because, well, to be fair, your bishop is kind of hitting blanks. And as white, you could consider 2 moves. Either first of all d5, or or rook d1 with idea d5. For example, a4, now you push d5, and then as we've seen a little before, this idea with knight d4, and this kind of feels pretty nice, right? Knight c4, and I think this is a pretty pleasant position for white. And alright, so this was a game that happened with Gelfand too. This was a game in Gelfand Topalov 2011, but this at the moment feels much more comfortable for white, because white can just try to play something along lines of a3, or sorry, rook b1, try to push for b3, or let's go back. How do I go back? There we go. Or something just like queen c2 and putting more pressure on this pawn. So white has a lot of options and black already has some weaknesses. The best thing about black's position is this knight, which is not dead permanently. Oh, I see some Farsi in the chat. Interesting. Alright, so we see why bishop f5 is not the most popular choice. What about bishop to e6? What do you think white should do now? So to be fair, white has many other, many alternatives. So it's not just one move that white can do or can't do, but some of these moves are, for example, a3, for example, knight to d2, or something with rook d1, as we saw in the previous one. Yeah, thank you. Rook d1, and the only thing to kind of keep in mind is if you were to play rook d1, then bishop c4 attacking your queen, you gotta play something like queen c2, knight b4, and now what do you want to do with your queen? So Harry, I think you're correct, and we will be looking at bishop g4 briefly, because bishop g4, we're kind of looking at bishop g4 last because that's actually what happened in the game. So now what do you want to do with your queen? I kind of think queen b1 is kind of the only move, unfortunately, because yeah, you can try something with like queen e4, but then there are like c6 or there's e6, and your queen is very misplaced up here. So queen b1 is the best choice, and right now as black, e5 is very, very, very interesting. So now what do you think white should do after this e5? I see everybody is kind of going towards queen b1 anyways. Huh, funny Captain Doll. Well, bishop d3 right now is not a threat because we would take it, and we would love to take two pieces for one rook. That would be like the dream. So what do you think we should go for after e5? So I see one idea with b3, interesting. And if b3 then takes on d4, if you were to take it back, then bishop can move away, and you have isolated pawn, and your rook is a little just kind of weird here. This is playable, but black does have black has a better game. I think black actually we can say black does have advantage. Sorry, but yeah, this is easier for black to play. Two bishops, open center, open targets. Yep. So let's just go ahead and take a look at, is there anything else to do after e5? I think taking, James, I think you're correct. Taking, at least we definitely should consider it. Levy, where do you want to play knight d5? Something about knight takes d4. I'm assuming you are mentioning if b3, then take. You wanted to take with the knight. Well, the problem is now bishop d3 gets a little scary because now there would be this c5 and your knight is pinned, and we don't really want to do that. We want two pieces for a rook. We don't exactly want to have to deal with just one piece for the rook. You know, this would be better for black already. So if in this situation you kind of have to take it with the pawn, and you would kind of have to be forced into this position as well, and it's just not really pleasant. Let's see, was this a game? I think this was a game, and McNabb, the Duke. Oh my god, I am horrible with pronunciations. But this game was played in 2010 Hantimansisk. And anybody who knows me, you guys know I'm horrible with pronunciation, so I apologize for that. But can't really do much about it besides improve my English, which I'm trying. But it will take some years before my pronunciation is better. But, alright. Any question in this line with b3 and take? Yeah, I think you guys are kind of warming up to the idea of taking right now. But the problem is kind of like after take, queen takes d1, knight takes d1, and bishop d3, and your queen is kind of getting trapped, which is kind of funny, right? Painful, but funny. I'm trying to see if that was mentioned in the chat. So I'm gonna wait like a few seconds for everybody to kind of catch up and the questions to pile up before we dive in. To answer the question Yaroslav asked, yeah, you were right, c5 was there, yep. Harry, could you please remind me which position are you talking about after a3, ed, where a3? I'm assuming instead of b3, well, there is a question of a3, so I guess here a3. It's possible, but if take on the here, and taking on c3 is still possible because rook d1 still exists and you can't really move your bishop anywhere. Bishop d2, I just take it. If you were to play queen to c2, now there is again take here and b3 is coming, and this is a very, very scary position for white. Oh, I see it, Miller. You wanted to do this a3 to prevent all this. Genius. Wow. Yeah, I think this a3 would, at this moment, would be pretty painful, to be honest. Like, yeah, you can try knight d2, but then just take. And yeah, to be honest, this is a very scary endgame to want to play. Especially with this pawns and this bishop. Yeah, I don't want to play this. I'd rather go to a haunted house. Oh, I think this was actually a game that Caruana played as black. This makes a little more sense too. Yeah, Caruana played this game and his opponent played Queen D1 right now, which was a humongous blunder. This was a game between um, Leitao and Caruana in Fantomas 2010. Interesting. And apparently Caruana only took 5 minutes for the whole game. Oh boy, that must have been painful for white. So Queen D2 is a possibility, with idea that Queen D2 you're just kind of not really giving that chance to Queen D1 is a blunder because if Queen D1 just Bishop B2, so Queen D2 would be more logical but still kind of painful. I really don't want to play this position. It's just a very painful position. You're just defending left and right, and this is just super winning. Okay, so let's go way back. Way back, but it did get pretty interesting. I hope that position comes up in the thumbnail. Alright, so we were somewhere around here and we were asking, okay, if e5, what should we do? I agree, yeah, practically that endgame, white would definitely lose at least 7 out of 10. Yeah, I was also slightly surprised that this line was played. Yeah, Queen B1 does not look very pleasant. I agree with that as well. So let's just go a little back. So after E5, to be totally honest, taking does not work as well. So most likely B3 would be the way to go, but B3 is also still pretty painful. Take, and we would get to a little unhappy position. So that's kind of why Bishop E6 would have been the best way to go. And Bishop E6, what white could do is, if you played Rook D1 as in the game with Bishop C4, you don't really have to play Queen C2 because as we saw, Queen C2 comes with Knight B4, and Queen B1 kind of makes it a little hard after E5. So you could just play something with Queen E1. It's not really that pretty, to be honest. Knight B4 still exists with the idea of jumping to C2 and making it more painful, but I think it's worth a try. Another way to think about it, if you don't really want to play Rook D1, I guess, what about A3 now? Just to stop these ideas. Still A4, and now this knight would jump around here, so that also fails. Maybe Knight D2. Yeah, maybe Knight D2 to keep these pawns here, so you're keeping your squares, but also at the same time you're protecting the C4 square. There is, yeah, Knight D2 kind of stops it, opens up the bishop. You are getting some ideas with D5, ideally. You still are gonna try and play this Rook D1, but hopefully maybe like a Knight E4. So there are a lot of things to be done, but Knight D2 seems to be the most interesting one instead of Rook D1. What about B3 right away? Interesting, but still A4. Yeah. If A4, if you were to like take, now this rook got activated. Well, it's not like too activated because still kind of stopped, but now this is another target. So I wouldn't want to play this as white. I would want to play this as black. Kind of black's pieces seem to have more activity than white's, and I don't think that would be ideal for white. Yep, so Knight D2 would be the best way to go in this position. However, black did not play Bishop E6, he went for Bishop G4. White simply played this H3, kicking the bishop. Bishop goes back to E6, and now, from what I understand, please feel free to correct me, but in this position, white simply played b3, which was a novelty at the time. Um, the other ways to go about it was, for example, knight to d2 or rook to d1. However, if rook d1, I think bishop c4 is the way to go, and they would kind of get to the same-ish position, either with a4 or with like queen c8, or trying to see, can e5 be? I think e5 right now doesn't work because of the pawn on h3. The king does have a leeway. Take that, take that, take that, and yeah, this does work actually. Take it with that, because this check doesn't work as strong since the king can just run away. Anyways, let's go back. And I wanted to talk a little bit about knight d2. So knight d2, what do you think black should do? Bishop c4 is interesting, but I wouldn't call it deadly. So Miller, which position are you considering? And no, I'm not streaming live from Iran. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. Or go to St. Louis Chess Club. Haha. Let's see. Ow. Some ideas about stuff. I agree with that. I still don't want to play b3 right away. Oh, okay, after h3, yeah, I agree. After h3, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. Knight d2 is definitely playable, but I think the problem, well, I think this knight b4 would be a little interesting as well, because knight's going to c2, and now after rook d1, queen c8, this is another way to go about it. This is still a pretty fight. You can try a3, that guy can move away, but this pawn is still under attack. You can take that. Maybe if take with knight, just king h2, defend your pawn. So I do like this position. I think white does have a pretty good fighting, similar as black. I think the only thing to consider is what to do with this bishop, to be honest. And e4 could also be coming up. I do like this position. Alright, so let's go back to the main line. Knight d2 is pretty possible, rook d1 is possible, and after h3. But b3 was, if I'm not mistaken, like home preparation from Gelfand, so I think that's worth more. And after b3, black simply played a4. Now, what do you think white should do? Well, we shouldn't take that. That's the first thing. No taking. What else? Keith, could you please remind me which position are you mentioning? I am looking at the chat, yeah. The chat is right here on the lovely iPad, which is kind of running out of battery. Yeah. But I do have to say, I'm very happy with the participation tonight. It's just really great. I think tonight is one of the busiest nights with, in terms of comments and the engaging, and I think it's really great. So thank you, everybody. I see a lot of new names. I see a lot of familiar ones from previously or on Twitch channel. So huge thank you for everybody. But what do you guys want to do now? We still got to finish up this game, which is a very long game. I'm actually playing this weekend. I'm playing European Women's Club Cup. I agree. Let's go rook b1. Let's save this rook from trouble. No pinning. I like it. Let's go. If take, we take back. In the game, black played queen c8, going after h3. Whoa, I double clicked. King h2, defending my pawn. I don't like to give up pawns. g4 is possible, but it doesn't really. It's too early. King h2 makes best sense. This rook a5 that was mentioned much earlier after black played a5. Someone mentioned maybe rook a5, rook h5. There you go. Here is your rook a5, rook h5. So alright. Rook a5 now. Black can simply, it's kind of like trying to form some sort of an attack, to be honest. But white doesn't really have to worry too much about it. So first of all, white could simply try and play knight b5 to stop this. Or, as it went in the game, rook d1 is another way to go. So rook d1, I kind of really do like the idea of rook d1, kind of ignoring you. I'm like, I want to play my d5. I'm just activating my rook. What do you want to do? I kind of do prefer this to knight b5. And now in the game, black played rook h5. Now, white to move. What do you think we should do as white? You kind of know what black is going after, so oh, great. I'm glad you like this, Malik. Yeah, I do teach different classes for the club. I think this is the only one on YouTube. Then I teach a bunch of them on Twitch, so feel free to check those out too. Steve? I don't think white's position is too weak. It's like, yeah, definitely it is surviving, and I don't think surviving is the right word. They just, black has very few ideas that's already trying out, and white is kind of waiting for the right moment to unleash in the center, and that would be pretty deadly. So it's just about the timing of it. Ooh, I see a lot of different ideas with h4, knight moves. I don't really like knight g1. Knight h4 is the best way to go about it. Bishop f6, and one more super strong move from white. What do you think white should do? And I agree. I don't think h4 is a good idea because bishop g4 existed. So white to move, what do you think we should do? Ooh, I see pawn g4. I see an idea with bishop f3. Bishop f3 is worth considering, but the problem with bishop f3 is rook takes h4, and yeah, just take back, take on h3, and white starts to get kind of a little unpleasant. So for that reason, we don't really want to give that chance to black, and that's why we don't really want to go for bishop f3. This move is kind of a very interesting move. I'll give it another few seconds, maybe someone will come with it. No, e4 is still too early. Still, you can't play e4, your d4 is falling. D5 is still too early, your c3 is still under attack. Oh no, we like our bishop, we don't want to take it there. Then h3 would be super weak. Nope. Oh, very surprised. Nobody's saying this move. Huh. Well, the best move to go about it is, is f4 now. f4 kind of stops this e5 forever, and to top that, taking on h4 doesn't really work as well because you just take back. If rook takes, now you have a super cool move of queen f1. Also, Also, to top that, king g3 is also an interesting move. Imagine if you can play king g3 and still have a great move. You can imagine how great this position is for white. Queen f5, queen f1, however, is a little bit just more, I want to say, classy, because queen f1 kind of stops everything, and now white could simply start going at it in the center. d5 coming. This bishop is no longer here to attack, so you can just unleash the center, and white is actually pretty much better now. So bishop takes h4 doesn't work. Black in the game played rook d8, and what do you guys think white should do now? To be completely fair, a move such as f5 is definitely worth considering, but it shouldn't matter that we're losing a pawn in this position or if bishop takes h4. But I think it's very interesting to try and find a very safe, but at the same time sneaky balance between when to push f5, when not to push. And I think this move is that, because white played queen to f2, still going like preparing for f5, but also supporting the knight a little bit, also supporting d4 a little bit. So I think queen f2 is that perfect balance. I know, right? This bishop is still on c1 while we're doing all this. f5 would have been possible. Bishop d7, then you could try to like push over there a little, taking on h4, and I just don't like the idea of giving my opponent, I don't like giving black too many chances to take over stuff. So I wouldn't really do this, to be honest. I kind of like queen f2. I like to keep it sweet and spicy. Black played take. Okay, take was a mistake. Black should have actually played rook back to a5. Yep, it's very weird, but that's what black should have done. But taking on h4, now white's just gonna have a blast. You take that guy back, black, and now you're considering to, you know, really unleashing the center. Black played knight to d5, take, and now, well, at the moment white can't play e4, but we can easily prepare for it, right? We want to play e4, we can't because rook takes d4. So how do we protect d4? Bishop b2, right? Makes sense. You just have to kind of be able to ask yourself the questions of what to do now, what does my opponent want, how do I stop it? So bishop b2 is the way to go. And after bishop b2, I think white played rook b5, which was another mistake, because, for example, now e4 is coming up. Keep in mind that, whoops, no, the wrong way, that yes, theoretically we could take over here and win some material, but bishop takes back, and now this bishop gets too strong, and white does not want that. So that's why we didn't take. Bishop b2, we want to just push on e4. It's kind of funny that black is like putting this rook against me. I'm like, nah, I don't want to eat that rook. Queen e2, going after this guy, going back on h5, because if you were to take, now I have d5, and your bishop is getting worse, and my bishop is becoming a monster. So rook goes back to h5, and now after like 25 moves, we get this move that we wanted with e4. Now d5 is coming up, right? Forking and everything. Yep, exactly. I'm kind of glad that you guys are answering each other in the chat too. Yeah, we don't want to give up our light squares. Funnily enough, if you take it, I have king g3, which is, I think, such an awesome move, attacking the rook, and we still want to do d5. I mean, seriously, if you win with a move such as king g3, it should show you how your position is great, how great your position is. There we go. That's the right English way to talk. That's the right way to talk English. Jesus, I've been watching a little too much Farsi stuff. I should stop. So bishop takes b3 happened in the game. White goes rook c1, right? We don't want to lose our pieces while we're attacking. you still are going for this d5, still opening up your bishop. Black in the game went for knight a5. Now, what do you think white should do? These are the last few moves of the game, which is very interesting. So, what do you think white should do? We've talked about this, reaching this position for a while now. So now that we're here, so what now? Well, your rook on d2 wouldn't be doing much. Your rook in c1 is actually doing something, making some sort of an attack. Oops. Yeah, exactly. d5, awesome. Opening up your bishop, your monstrous bishop. In the game, Grischuk played b6. The position is getting a little helpless, to be honest. Bishop e5. Attacking this. Imagine if your rook was on d2, you couldn't do that. Now you're going after this pawn too. Black played c5 and white played en passant. Didn't really have to. Queen b5 would have also been super strong because you can just, you know, eat this pawn too. So taking on c6 makes sense as well. And here actually c7 is worth considering too. But Gelfand just wanted to play it normal. He went bishop all the way to a1, surprisingly, because I'm also assuming that if he could just take on b3 and give this check and pick up this knight, that would also be super winning. And I don't think he wanted to avoid complications in my mind. And so when Grischuk played rook c5, that kind of stops the plan momentarily. Take, but to be honest, I think taking here is still worth considering, but we shouldn't really, I mean, if you see an easier way to win, you shouldn't go for the more complicated one. So if you see a way to keep your pawn, then you should do that, because that pawn on c6 is very valuable. But if you don't see any way to win, this is another way to try and consider it. But let's go back to the game. Take, and Gelfand just simply went queen to b5. Well, rook g1 would not be threatening anything, because then you would have to move your bishop and try and create something with the pawns, where the white's game is mainly in the center/queen side and trying to create some chances with the bishops. So it's a little bit of different dynamic. So, alright, queen b5, the game is getting spicy. Queen c7, and now what do you think white should do? These are last few moves of the game, like literally 2-3 moves left. Keep in mind, queen c7 is technically defending this knight, attacking this pawn, and technically your c6 pawn is also under attack. I don't think queen c6 would have won, because, I mean, if queen c6 as white, you can just take that guy. I'm assuming rook b3 would also work. So queen c7, exactly, let's take the exchange. Well, let's give up, well, not really exchange, you're taking the b3, but if you were to take it back, I would just take it with check, and I would also get to keep my c6 pawn. So that's kind of what we want to go for. We want to be able to get those two pieces and keep our pawn. In the game, Grischuk simply played knight takes c6, and, well, kind of gave up the piece, which was very interesting. I guess white simply goes e5, opening other bishop, stopping queen f4 ideas. Knight d4, and Gelfand did queen c4 check. I'm assuming bishop d4 is coming up as well, rook b7 is coming up as well. A lot of things are coming up. None of them are very pleasant for black. And yeah, at this moment, Grischuk resigned. And I think that is how Gelfand became won the okay, I don't want to say the wrong word. Give me 1 second. Exactly, the candidates in Kazan. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. World champion candidates. Yeah, the word wasn't coming up, but yeah. So that's how Grischuk won this candidate tournament in 2011. And I think that was actually pretty cool to see that, because it was such an up and down game. We saw how it could have gone wrong for black, or how could have gone wrong for white actually, and how black tried to make it work, but it was kind of too late at that point. And the idea of rook a5, rook h5, I really liked that. I think that was interesting, but it just wasn't really enough. And along the way, black made some mistakes as well. For example, queen c7 here was a mistake, like bishop a2 was better. Let's look at another example. A little bit earlier with like the rooks moving around, when the rook was on h5. So, whoops, that we had lost a little in the position. So after f4, rook d8, queen f2, taking here was wrong. It would have been more interesting to just pack and leave this rook. So yeah. That are the bottom line is that black made more inaccuracies and more mistakes than white, and that's kind of why white won. And surprisingly, GM Pishi did not make any appearances. He's kind of staring at me, but he stayed away the whole time. Whoa, I think that's a first. Alright, with that, I think I am going to go ahead and start wrapping up the stream. I still have about 50 more pages to read for my biochemistry, but I am doing Ladies Night this week on Twitch Thursday, so feel free to stop by Thursday on Twitch or Friday on Twitch. If not, I'll just see you right back here next Tuesday. Have fun with the rest of your week.